Winners win. I'm a winner. We're going to win.
Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_GB. And it is time to continue our spring practice coverage. Practice 2 for the Gators. And on this episode, we will hear from offensive coordinator Buster Faulkner, along with wide receivers Vernell Brown III and Dallas Wilson. So lots to get into, of course, right here on the offensive side of the ball. Man, I mean, there's so much to get into. So many angles, so many storylines with a new staff taking over and players, these two players in particular, part of that group that just we had to retain, had to be a part of this team moving forward for John Summerall. If it was going to have some year one success, there was going to have to be some guys retained. These were two of them, and two at the wide receiver spot heading into their second year. And a big reason we're excited for those guys, because you get to pair them with Buster Faulkner. You get to compare them. You get to pair them with one of the top offensive coordinators in college football. So there's a lot to get into on the offensive side of football right here for the Florida Gators and spring practice. So, hey, look, I'm trying to expand it so you can follow Gators Breakdown. Search it on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook Reels, all that good stuff. Just search for it. You can either search for GatorDave_GB or Gators Breakdown, and you'll find it right there on all those platforms. So if you want some more, even more Gators Breakdown, of course, in the bite-sized fashion, in the shorter fashion, you can get it right there on those platforms. But also ramping up the merch, some new merch out there, everybody. Now the new cursive font hats out there. It's kind of all the rage out there. Some orange and blue, some palm and pine. Where palm and pine are blowing. And look, of course, got the shirts to go along with it as well. Just trying to expand the brand a little bit. So everybody, well, not everybody, a lot of people ask how I can support Gators Breakdown. Well, that's what. If you want to have some Gators Breakdown swag, you can do so. But all the new designs up there, kind of just been on a kick lately of all the new designs. So right there, everybody. Gators Breakdown.printful.me. You can find it right there. And a lot of new Gators Breakdown merch. Even the popular Move Back You Suck shirts still going strong right there in the Gators Breakdown store. So if you want some merch right there, you can take care of you. All right, everybody, hit that like button. Subscribe before we get into this episode of Gators Breakdown. That really, really helps us out. But smash that like button. Leave some comments as well. Share your thoughts on what you hear this episode of Gators Breakdown. Subscribe right here on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. So, all right, let's get to offensive coordinator Buster Faulkner. We'll start with him. His media availability following spring practice number 2 under John Summerall. And there's a ton to unpack here. We're only 2 days into spring, of course, but already the energy and the direction of this offense are coming into focus. Let's start with the quarterback room, because everybody wants to know about the quarterbacks, of course. Faulkner sounds impressed so far this stage, and let's hear his thoughts on the room right now.
I like the command that really all of them have right now after 2 days of being in the offense and, having a chance to go out there and practice and compete and actually get a chance to do it against somebody else other than a walkthrough. So, the command's been really good by every one of the guys so far. Really excited where they're at and their development.
Different for maybe a guy like Trammell, who's having to learn a new system, than with Aaron Philo, or do you coach them the exact same?
Yeah, no, we coach everybody the exact same, right? Like, we want to go full bore, throw it all at them, and, eventually we'll coach around whoever that guy is, his strengths. That's just what I believe in. But we didn't hold anything back. Same thing with the freshmen. The good thing with all these guys, like I get it, Philo, was in the terminology a little bit last year, but there's been a lot change, right? He's a different quarterback than the guy that we coached a year ago. So all the quarterbacks, all the offense, whether they're freshman, senior, junior, transfer, they've all really got the same install from the beginning. Really, nobody's ahead of anybody. The tech guys obviously have a an understanding of the terminology, but there's still a lot more. You evolve and you add and mix. We got a great staff and we get great ideas and we can do things, different ways. So everybody got ground up, so it's been really good so far.
What are your early impressions of Vernell Jones, just what you've seen from him this week?
Yeah, got a great kid, number one, and that's where it starts. Got some toughness, got some leadership ability. Been a guy that's been here, spent a lot of extra time, with obviously Coach Craddock, spending time with him, and then we've got A.J. Erdley and then Steve Spurrier. So we've got three guys around those guys, so we can make sure that the most important, position in all of football is getting developed and getting coached at all times. If Coach Craddock and I are in a meeting, then one of those two guys can take them and slow practice down for them as they're watching it, or whatever it may be. So it's the most important position in football, and we're going to do a great job of developing that position.
Here we go. Continuing to love the message about the competition here without really, having to come out and say it again. I mean, you can just hear, hey, this is a competition. It doesn't have to be said in the straight form and fashion like that. We know it's one. Many of us, myself included, gave Philo a leg up because of the familiarity. But if we take what Faulkner's saying here, if we take him for his word here, then it may not be that much of an advantage. Now stressing that the system and the player are both different now. So he specifically highlighted Vernell Jones for his toughness, extra time he's putting in. So, we're talking about a guy who's already, of course, spending significant hours in the building, trying to master the system, getting caught up pretty quick from all accounts. So that's the kind of buy-in you need from your signal caller, especially, when you're installing NFL-based offense with complex terminology. That's what Buster Faulkner went on to say in his press conference is, this is a complex offense. He isn't easing anyone into this. He's throwing the full playbook at these guys from day one, freshmen included. So, of course, the goal is to prepare these players for the next level, from the jump. And that's a pretty bold approach, of course, but shows the ambition of the staff, shows the belief Buster Faulkner has in his staff, the adaptability, and not living, we'll get into it, but not living in one realm or the other, run, pass, will be a pretty balanced offense. But I'm telling you, this is a true competition. Credit for what it sounds like is a complex offense. Vernell Jones really getting it and putting himself in the competition. He's firmly in the competition. We'll see how much the familiarity. There's still some for Aaron Philo. Does it pay off? I mean, we've all seen the practice clips out there, and that's all that is right now. There's not a lot. There's not defenses rushing in their face. They're not having to make so many quick decisions right now. A lot of it is just routes on air, throwing to assistants out there, throwing over dummies. I mean, that's just what we see right now. This is going to come down to more than what we see a quarterback throwing the ball on all these practice highlights, of course. I mean, there's a mental side of this that we're just not going to get from all the video and highlights that we see out there in this practice. So, right now, you probably would be hard-pressed to find any difference in some of the arm talent that you're looking for in some of those videos. It's going to be about when they go 11 on 11 and the decisions that they make. We all know that. They've said so much this week already. Who's going to take care of the football? Who's going to make the right decision? Who's not going to hurt the team? That's what they'll be looking for. But, when it comes to the offensive identity, Faulkner was crystal clear.
The biggest thing we want to come out of spring ball is we want to have an identity, right? We want to be able to be the toughest, most physical football team on Saturday afternoons. That's how football's won. We want to be able to throw and catch at a high level. And we want to be able to run the football when everybody knows in the stadium we got to run it. So, those are big things. But number one would be having an identity and kind of be able to shape this thing where we want it to go this summer.
There we go. Tough, physical, wants a group that can line up, run the ball even when the defense knows it's coming, while still maintaining a high-level passing attack. Some of that is music to my ears. And not that I think he meant running it no matter what, but, when you have to, like he said, when we have to, not when we want to, when we have to, be able to dictate what you're going to do. It's been my biggest complaint with the previous staff and just general staffs in general. letting a defense dictate what you want to do on offense. Yeah, does that have a time and a place? Sure, it does. But for the most part, you want to be able to do what you want to do. You need to be able to dictate the game, not have the defense dictate, bait you in what they want you to do. No. We're going to run. We're going to run what we run. Good luck stopping it. I hope that's the level this offense gets to on a consistent basis. That balance and ability, what separates good offenses from great ones, sounds like that's the standard he's setting this spring. So we'll see where, that's what he wants out of the spring. That's what he wants this identity of the offense to be. We'll see in a few weeks. Obviously, it's not going to be a finished product, but that's just the foundation you're laying right now. Let's talk about some of the standout players Buster Faulkner wanted to talk about or was asked about, because, there are a few names that really jumped out in this presser, and one we'll hear from in just a few minutes. Vernell Brown III. Faulkner called him a, quote, natural-born leader, said he spends more time in the building than any receiver he's ever coached. And with Faulkner, we're talking about a guy who's got nearly 20 years of coaching experience. So incredible endorsement there for Vernell Brown III, clearly setting the tone in that receiver room. Somebody else setting the tone, and that's Eric Singleton Jr. Faulkner described him as explosive, one of the smartest players he's worked with, said Singleton has picked the offense back up very quickly. Looks like he's never left. So when your offensive coordinator, is that high on a guy's football IQ, is going to be a major piece of this offense. We know that anyway. It sounds like, it's just almost plug and play for Eric Singleton to come in here, the familiarity he had with Buster Faulkner and just kind of picking up. I mean, we hear it, we see it. The speed out there really stands out about Eric Singleton Jr. right now. And you kind of just pairing what you hear Buster Faulkner say about him and VB3, you got one saying for Singleton, one of the smartest guys that I've ever worked with. And then for VB3, it's a natural born leader, and he spends more time in the building, more than any receiver I've ever coached. So, you've got some accolades here for two wide receivers that we're expecting a whole lot from in his first year with Buster Faulkner. Now, let's keep it going. We'll hear from Dallas Wilson as well. Buster Faulkner had to say he's staying engaged despite not being able to practice early, sitting in meetings and walkthroughs, getting the mental reps. They're not rushing him back. And then he was asked about Hezzy Kent. Of course, the big 6'7", over 300-pound tight end right now. And Faulkner literally said he's open by birth, because of his massive frame. Does say he's got some of the best ball skills on the team, but the focus right now is getting his conditioning up so he can stay on the field for more snaps. They get that dialed in. Kent could be a matchup nightmare. There's a lot of work here to be done. And there's still going to be, and we brought it up the other day, a lot of people have brought it up, is there an eventual move to tackle in his future? We'll see. We'll see. He might can play at over 300 pounds. You're not going to play a lot at that size. Even if you are a matchup nightmare, how conditioned can you be to stay on the field in that regard? So right now, at the very least, maybe a red zone threat, play here, play there. So remember, he had an earlier injury, not major, but slowed him down a little bit, took some of the conditioning away. Summer conditioning will be coming up after spring. We'll see what Hezzy Kent looks like, as all this activity is going on, but also when the summer conditioning coming up. I also brought up Micah Mays, transfer from Wake Forest. He also got mentioned. Faulkner noted that he's picked up the system pretty quickly and brings some versatility to the offense, which is always valuable. And then interesting aspect here. We know Buster Faulkner, this is one reason we all were kind of very hyped about Buster Faulkner coming in as an offensive coordinator. It's how creative he can get. And part of that is he likes to use receivers in the run game, use them as weapons there. So forgetting this, he likes to use receivers in the run game, for getting speed to the edge, and using, quote, punt returner type players to get the ball in their hands. He mentioned Eric Singleton, TJ Abrams, Vernell Brown III, and Bailey Stockton as body types that fit what they want to do in that regard. So you can best bet. It's one reason I was so excited about Buster Faulkner coming to Florida, because even without Singleton, but it just made it even better. The physical presence this wide receiver group had to be able to take part in the offense like this. Because I knew he was going to use running back or wide receivers as not necessarily running backs, but in the run game. You got VB3. You had TJ Abrams. This was before the transfers come in. Davion Gross as a recruit. Justin Williams as a recruit who just signed with the Gators. Literally can see them easily in this spot. And then you went and added guys who have experience with Buster Faulkner in doing it like this, and Bailey Stockton and Eric Singleton. So I expect to see this a pretty good bit in this Gator offense. And let's go to the reverse of that. Running backs in the passing game. Expanded role for Jaden Ball. Faulkner mentioned using special teams time to work one-on-one with Ball, specifically focusing on ways to utilize him more in the passing game. There's a skill set development happening here. He believes they can broaden Jaden Ball's skill set and using these invaluable reps, that's what he said, quote, invaluable reps, to slow things down and teach him specific elements of the offense. Now, you heard Buster Faulkner mentioning the coaches that he gets to work with. And he noted that because with this deep coaching staff on offense that he has, they can help handle the quarterbacks. And he's able to spend some free time. He's free to spend some extra time with Jaden Ball, an athlete like Jaden Ball, who, well, he said now, currently not on the special teams unit. So they can work on other things. And if Jaden Ball wants to become this all-around back, and is already a pretty good pass catcher in his own right, they want to expand that role. So this is what going back to one more time, why I was excited about Buster Faulkner is just able to use the better players on offense to get creative, to get explosive, to get open. Ball in the passing game, wide receivers in the run game. This is going to be a pretty versatile offense, a pretty creative offense. On the offensive line now, it's got to start there. These guys have got to help, of course. Still said they're searching for the best five, but Faulkner did mention that he saw drastic improvement in intensity and detail between day one and day two. And that's exactly what you want to hear in spring ball. Players making quick adjustments, raising their level of play, even early on. Now, we'll see. We'll see as they move forward. Not even pad zone yet. So we'll see where it goes. And this is the trenches will catch up in just a bit with the pad. I think the pads are coming on Saturday. But it did say on the offensive line they have a lot of bodies up front, and they want to find the best five and value flexibility. Tackles who can play guard, centers who can play guard, all that stuff. He also noted a clear improvement from day one to day two. Made sure he mentioned that. So from what I've been told, looking at the first team offensive line as of now, early on, this is what Florida's working with, and there have been some changes. Caden Jones at left tackle, Najee Harris at left guard, Jason Zendamela at center, Bryce Lovett at right guard, and TJ Dice at right tackle. I don't think that's a set in stone. Notice no transfers right there. Those guys will have to earn their way into the starting lineup. I think, some of the incumbents that were on the team last year finding themselves, at least early on, where the offensive line is going to start. Would this be the starting five right now if Florida had a game? Maybe. Does it stay like this next practice, the practice after that? I just think as far as practice 2 goes, this was what would have been considered the number one offensive line. All right, so takeaway here, it's early. It's still early. Day 2 of spring practice, of course, but the tone's being set. Offense is going to be physical. It's going to be smart. It's going to be creative. They're going to be prepared for the next level. Quarterback room's developing. Playmakers are stepping up. Culture's being built from the ground up. But I think Buster Faulkner's got a quiet confidence. Now, he's on them. At practice, he is on these guys. He's pretty vocal about what he's expecting, what he's looking for. But I think there's a confidence that he can get this group where he wants it. All right, let's move forward. Let's talk wide receivers. Let's start with VB3, Vernell Brown III, because he gives you a lot in his media availability. We'll go through it all just like this. Like I said, I'll follow the rules set forth by Florida. We used about 3 minutes of footage. That's thankfully we get to use that and bringing it to you guys. But for VB3, it wasn't just the usual, we're working hard stuff. So let's start with him and his, story of whether, what he's changed about himself. Coming back to Florida, not hitting the transfer portal. All that good stuff here from VB3. And of course, changing to the number 1.
Honestly, the way I view it is just hair. So one day I was at home over break, just looking in the mirror. I'm like, man, I'm going to cut my hair off. So as soon as I got back to Gainesville, I cut it off. New year, new start. And it's just hair at the end of the day.
Coach Summerall talked about you earning the number 1. Could you talk about why you made that decision to change your number and if there was maybe a little Gators history behind it?
Yeah, so originally I wanted to stay in number 8, but obviously as closer to those conversations, understanding the history of players who wore number 1 like Percy Harvin, Kadarius Toney, Ricky Pearsall. Just the pedigree and the expectation that comes along with 1 was ultimately why I made that decision. I couldn't stay away from what some people would call the pressure, but I'm thriving and embracing that. So.
Said you remind him a little of Percy. How do you kind of accept that and step into those standards?
It's definitely an honor to be compared to someone of that nature as a player. Percy was a freak. Everybody knows what he did in his time here, but ultimately I'm trying to do what he did and more. So.
How did you handle the coaching transition, and what about Coach Summerall and the new coaching staff made you buy in and decide to stay?
So already being at Florida, you can enter the portal, but it's going to be a fresh start wherever you go, whether that's here, whether you stay here or enter the portal. So I'm like, I didn't want to leave, obviously, being here. This is my dream school, with the legacy and all of that. But, just giving the staff an opportunity to build that relationship. And then Coach Summerall, ever since our first conversation, I loved how his energy and just how the way he got something to him. So I really loved that, and that's a coach that I wanted to play for.
Help that your brother had committed, and what's it like having him on the team now?
Yeah, it's a blessing, we all dreamed of coming to the University of Florida, so him and my older cousin being able to play alongside me, it's great.
Getting back to Coach Summerall, his energy on the field, what's that like as a player when you see him kind of bouncing around from position group to position group?
Yeah, he's always hyped. That's one thing I can say about Coach Summerall. Even if, every day you might not have the most energy, you might not be the guy that's picking everybody up, but you see Coach come around and he's having the energy like, why can't I? So, just him having the energy that he does have, picking everybody up and just encouraging everybody.
Obviously, you were able to accomplish a lot starting as a freshman. What areas do you want to kind of improve, or where do you want to kind of get better for next season?
Right, yeah. Like I said, establish myself as a freshman, definitely looking to build on that this year. But I would say one of my main focuses this offseason was ball skills, just improving my ball skills. Last year, I feel like I laid too many balls on the ground, so just trying to eliminate that.
All right, so of course the big headline here, and it came out earlier this week, right before spring practice started. We get the number updates, and I know a lot of you love the number 1 storyline. Who's wearing jersey number 1? And that's the big headline for a lot of you out there. It doesn't mean a whole lot to me. It shouldn't change anything. Is it a thing? Sure. I don't get overly hyped for it, but it doesn't really matter to me, honestly. But it does send a mindset. I'll admit that in some ways. Yeah, especially for VB3, the way he explains it, it is telling. Originally said he wanted to stay in 8. Conversations got closer, started to understand the history of the number. He couldn't stay away from. Of course, the big names: Percy Harvin, Kadarius Toney, Ricky Pearsall. That number 1 does mean a lot for that wide receiver group. And look, I think for him, for VB3, it's him saying, I know what this means here. I know what it means. He doesn't run. He's not running from the pressure. There is some pressure now. If you're gonna want to go claim that number, there's going to be some pressure that comes with it from the fan base. He says some people call it pressure, but he's embracing it. And then somebody brings up Percy Harvin comparison. Of course, he is the freak. We all, a freak out there, not the freak, that's Javon Curse, but the freak that we talk about for so long, Percy Harvin. I mean, still many will claim the best pound for pound football player Florida's ever had. Now, this is kind of very similar, not really brought up the same way, but Percy was also number 8 his freshman year and then switching to number 1. So VB3, number 8, switching to number 1. So I love the big statement, though. I'm trying to do what he did more. I hope so. A lot of options here for Florida at the wide receiver spot. But it doesn't to me come off of trying to make a headline there for VB3. I like the quiet confidence. I'm going to wear number 1. Let's go continue the legacy. Legacy one more time. You got the last name, now the number jersey. Continue the legacy right here for VB3. I mean, he just understands what he signed up for here. So going back to the coaching transition part, I thought that part mattered. He straight up acknowledges that, the portal reality, a fresh start could be anywhere, but doesn't want to leave Florida. Dream school. The legacy matters. Wanted to give the staff an opportunity to build a relationship. And I don't think it would have took, a lot of arm twisting to get VB3 to stay. Definitely wants to be here. But still, I think sends a great message. He wanted to be a part of what John Summerall was building. And keeps coming back to Summerall's energy. Says he loved that first conversation. Loved the energy there. Loved how Summerall carries himself. And I think, this quote basically tells you what he thinks of, the leadership and what it looks like right now. Says Summerall's always hype, even on days when players aren't the ones lifting everybody up. The head coach comes around, picks that energy up, picks everybody up. It's not scheme talk, it's culture talk. He also gets asked about being one of the first guys to say he's coming back and whether he recruited other guys to stay. And he kind of, looks at it in a good way. He's like, look, people already have a million voices in their ear. His conversations were more about life with these guys, checking on the people, the human perspective, even using an example like calling, Jaden Ball and just being a guy with him, and not really giving a sales pitch. Of course, VB3, very mature, I think knows how to handle that situation. Then there's the self-critique piece. I always pay attention when players are kind of critiquing themselves. I didn't think it was overly a concern, but I'm glad that he points it out, that he put too many balls on the ground. Could it be an improvement? Yeah, sure. Something you always want to work on as a receiver because you don't want it to become an issue. But also, now, jugs machine, tennis balls, that's the kind of answer you want to hear. It's measurable. It's not vague. And then talking about special teams as well, he does. You can tell he's into it, loves returning punts. But he also says, basically, I'm there however they need me. Returner, blocker, gunner. And some of the practice number 2, you had VB3 as a blocker, trying to go after those punts. So I think line him up anywhere. Make the opposing punt team identify where VB3 is. Sounds like, that answer is kind of coming from the staff with a message. We're going to use our playmakers on special teams. And we're going to have them embrace some roles, some different roles. I'm excited to, hearing VB3. I mean, seen the video already. He had 2 footballs, or he had a football in each hand, catching punts at the first practice, making sure those elbows are together. Don't drop the punt. And now some word of him and the punt block team as well. So, I mean, you've seen it. You've seen it before. A lot of Urban Meyer references on special teams, getting the playmakers involved, whether it be in the return game, whether it be in the block game. Hit repeat. And now let's get to the wide receiver room dynamic. He compliments the freshman. They're focused, locked in, eager to learn. And then he says something that's, real if you've ever been around a team. He's like, look, even as a young guy, you feel like for him, he's still a young guy. Feel like you could be a resource because he was a freshman last year. And those freshmen can come in and say, hey, why can't I do it? So he wants to help them with that transition. That was just him just a year ago. And Davion Gross is coming in expected to play. Justin Williams as well. Marquez Daniel. And then Florida's bringing in 3 guys. Now, it's a deep receiver room. It is a very deep receiver room. But I think Buster Faulkner's proven if you can play, we're going to play you. If you deserve the ball in your hand, you're going to get the ball in your hand. So VB3 is a guy that can help them with that transition because he just did it just a year ago. And then he talks about the quarterback room. Doesn't pick sides, of course. Emphasizes the habits. Extra time, watching film, conversations about plays, and he keeps repeating the connection piece. Like at the end of the day, the wide receiver and the quarterback have to be on the same page. Chemistry, not just routes on air. So, and then he does touch on the gauntlet workouts. Makes it a point that I think matters for this staff. He says it's not always the drill that's the hardest. It's doing it with detail, finishing through the line. Keep the line straight. It's the little things that aren't so little. That's exactly the kind of stuff this new staff is going to lean on when they're trying to change how a team operates day to day, how a team that doesn't need to fall apart in the fourth quarter over and over and over again come out on the top of those close games. That's what the gauntlet's for. VB3 was one of the top performers, by the way, in the gauntlet. And if I remember right, he didn't lose a rep. So, type of mindset, type of player you want as a leader. And then the roster turnover reality. He spoke on that. He mentions 50 plus new guys. That's a lot of people, of course. We all know that. It comes with a coaching transition. Who's this guy? Who's that guy? But he frames it as learning from each other, seeing different work ethics, and getting aligned on a common goal. And then he finally gets to talk about Buster Faulkner. Says he enjoys the one-on-one meetings with Faulkner. He respects the history and the track record. And he says what he likes is balance and motion, putting defenses in a bind, moving guys around. Plus, he mentions position flexibility being a big emphasis for him personally. He gets to play inside. He gets to play outside. And that's what we thought we would get from VB3. Especially going into year 2, expanding on year 1. And then a little nugget is about, competition and speed. He says, guys, adding guys raises the competition. Talk about the wide receiver room here, going and getting a guy like Eric Singleton Jr., Bailey Stockton, Micah Mays, putting some more bodies in that room. It's going to raise the competition, of course. Makes everybody go harder. Then he drops the hint that Eric Singleton hit 23 miles an hour in a race with him and TJ Abrams. And he's still competitive about it. He's like, no, I might be racing Eric Singleton Jr. He might be fast, but I always think I can win. So right here, overall takeaway from VB3, leaning into the expectation piece. Number 1 isn't just a jersey choice for him. He knows the standard of it. He's treating it like a standard. And then everything else he kind of talks about, it supports that. Detailed work, working on the ball skills, embracing roles, culture stuff like the energy and the response, in a receiver room where the competition is absolutely going to be real. Now, it's also going to be real because, there's another second-year player, Dallas Wilson. Because we're going to fast forward to his media availability, and you can kind of hear the frustration. But also a guy who, it's the best way to put that, it's kind of starting to understand what the job actually requires. Of course, he'd love to be out there. Can't be out there right now. But I think there's a realization that he gets it.
Dallas, how difficult was that injury to go down against Georgia last year after the start that you had to your UF career?
I would say it was pretty hard because knowing all the work you put in through the season to get back to where you want to be, it's a challenge, but it's also being competitive too, having a competitive mindset. And just being out there with my brothers really just pushing me and then going through that So it was pretty hard, but honestly, I got better along the way.
I know we got to talk to you after the Texas game, but as you look back on the 4 games that you did play in last year, where do you feel like you made the most strides in your game?
I say I made progress through all the games. Really, just learning the offense we had, and then being out there with Coach Napier, and then being out there with Coach Billy G and all the receiver coaches. They was like being like they'd be hard on you, but they want the best for you. So just going out there and just playing free, really, and then just playing to the best of my ability.
Coaches have said they're going to be cautious with you right now, just to make sure when you do come back, you're fully healthy. Just how important for you is that to put all this behind you and be fully healthy so you can go into your second season?
Just taking all the right steps, not right now, and then just being very cautious on what I'm doing outside the facility, eating right, how your diet is, what you're doing when you're not playing football, how you live your life actually. So really just being being a pro at everything I do right now.
How's your foot doing now, and what was the setback you had recently?
Really just my foot. I wouldn't say it's always been a problem, but I'll just say really just being cautious of what's going on around. And then when I had my last foot injury last year, really just healing from that, and then make sure it's not getting inflation and everything. So.
You said you were doing the gauntlet and the workouts. Did you just go too hard, or maybe?
That's a good question. Actually, I'm very competitive, so when they just let me go, I go out there and have fun, because seeing everybody working, I'm like, well, why can't I do it? And then all the coaches pushing you, and then you got players out there pushing you, so it was great. I really wasn't even worried about my foot when I was out there.
When did it flare up again, and when did you realize that you weren't going to be able to be out there the first day, and how disappointing was that?
I really just got regular checks in the training room all the time. I'm in there all the time, just getting treatment, getting a lot of rehab. So I usually got scans on the regular, but they said they don't have caution for me coming up, because I had a lot of load on. I was getting a lot of load.
Did you go see a specialist about it?
Say that again?
Did you go see a foot specialist?
When are you referring to?
In the offseason this year, after the.
I went to a lot of different people about my foot just to get secondary opinions, third opinions, and I got a lot of stuff back, so it was good.
What did you learn about it?
Just how your body works, really, how your body works, how your body moves, how different people's bodies are, and then particularly my body was different because I gained weight through last year. So.
They told you that they wanted you to sit out. Did you just take it and say, okay? Did you try to say, no, I can practice, or what was it like hearing that news?
Talking to Paul, my guy down in the training room. So really, me and him having back-to-back conversations all the time. When he told me, usually I get irritated, I get agitated really fast, but knowing that I'm here with the team and then we're not going into the season right now is good. So it's good to take this time off and really just get back to where I need to be.
From seeing a specialist, are they going to get you a special cleat or something that's molded to your foot to make sure that you don't suffer a re-injury?
Just taking all the right precautions, really, wearing the right shoes. Usually you'll wear players of me, I wear hard toe shoes, wearing slides all the time, but usually just wearing the right shoes and everything, and that really should be good.
All right, so first time we get to hear Dallas Wilson kind of open up about the injury, of course, going down against Georgia last year. I think you can tell it bothered him, not too bad, but not just because it hurts, but because of the work. And that goes for anybody. You go back to the idea you put all the time in, you put all the work in, you want to go compete, you want to be out there with your teammates, and then your body says no. So, of course, he calls it hard, but he also says he got better along the way. And that's kind of the theme of everything he says after that. It sounds like the staff is watching, the inflammation that could be going on with this foot injury. He's in the training room constantly, regular scans, regular treatment, rehab, all of it. And he kind of admits that a lot of the guys probably feel, but don't always say. Get irritated when somebody tells him that he has to sit. So it's good to hear the realization, the admission of this, but kind of talks himself through it in real time. It's okay. It's not the season. Still with the team. And there's still time to do it the right way to get back where he needs to be. And there's a maturity step here. Not everybody gets there. So obviously, just being cautious. That's what it's kind of about right now. And I think that's where, kind of the insight is with Dallas. He's basically describing the rookie lesson every talented player eventually learns. Your body's part of your job. starts talking diet, starts talking lifestyle, what you do when you're not at practice, and literally says he's trying to be a pro at everything right now. It's not a slogan. I mean, it's a guy realizing availability is part of the production. And like, it's going to hang in the back of our mind. We love the level he was at when he was on the field, which we only got 4 games out of it. And then you start the spring with an injury. John Summerall, I think, alleviated some of the worries, saying if there was a game, he'd be out there. So I'm cautiously, but very optimistic this is not a big deal. Now, obviously, everybody goes back to a year ago and somewhat relatable to the DJ Lagway situation, different position. So I think the mental reps here can help. Being on the sideline as a receiver doesn't hurt as much as the quarterback position. And we saw it at such a high level from Dallas Wilson as a freshman. And you can do that at receiver. So I'm not greatly concerned about the status of Dallas Wilson right now. So why he came back points to the new staff energy. There was a lot of rumors out there. I mean, Dallas Wilson's going to enter the portal. He's going to go to Texas. Or he's going to go here. But that was one that was out there. You know, there was a report out there from Texas media that Jaden Ball and both Dallas Wilson were going to enter the portal and go to Texas. But he's another one that says on why he came back, he points to the new energy. Mentions Buster Faulkner and Summerall, and then talks about Marcus Davis specifically. He knew Davis from his recruitment, says Davis always wanted him, and now he gets to be coached by him. He calls it a blessing. And then the part that really ties into the bigger picture, the portal stuff. Dallas says he prayed through it. Says he's wanted to stay where it mattered. And his reasoning is simple, but it's real. Either way, you're starting over. Why leave when you can build it here? And I'm glad him and VB3 both kind of put that out there. That is obviously, can there be some benefits of a clean start somewhere? Sure. But when there's a coaching change, you're kind of getting that already. And for VB3, a little bit easier, wants to have that legacy. Like I said, it probably wasn't going to be having to twist his arm too much to get him back. But for Dallas Wilson, you know, originally committed and signed with Oregon, ends up at Florida anyway. Well, there's a lot to that. And he also brings up something that, you know, matches what we've heard from the other guys about the live conversations. It says people were talking to him, but not always about the portal. More like, what are you doing? What's going on? Checking in on him. That stuff mattered when making his decision. But he also gives a clear reason for staying in state. Family. And he wants to be close to home. And that was one of the reasons he left Oregon and came to Florida. Mentions his grandmother's health, staying close, keeping family in mind. That's not football talk. That's real life talk. And that, you know, that explains his choice. A lot of these choices that these guys were making. And of course, it's refreshing in this NIL world. You know, the general rule of thumb that I like to live by in a lot of these conversations in college football in general right now, but especially with NIL and players, it's always about the money. But not always. Not always. Dallas Wilson probably could have went and got paid more somewhere else. A lot of these players that stayed, a lot of these players that were retained probably could have. Not to say they're not getting a nice payday out of it anyway. Of course they are. But it wasn't the determining factor. It wasn't, if you offer me more, I will go there. There was a lot of reasons to stay at Florida. He finishes with the mental side of being hurt, and honestly, it's probably one of the better answers you get. Saying it's not fun, you're in pain, you have a lot of free time, you're not playing, but he says he could still help. I like this part, and you heard Keith Niebuhr and I talk about this a couple of weeks ago. Bring the juice to practice. Dallas Wilson, that's what he is. He can get you hype. He brings the juice, and that's kind of been the famous word lately. He brings the juice. He can help his teammates learn. And, you know, that's the part that tells you he's staying connected to the team, even when he can't be the player he wants to be yet. So, of course, you know, now you got the multiple opinions on the foot. Says he's learned about how much his body works. But sometimes, the fix isn't just rest more. Sometimes your body mechanics change and everything up the chain changes with it. So he's learning as he goes, learning to be a better football player, learning to be, a better person in taking care of his body. I mean, this is going to go a long way, I think, with Dallas Wilson, the realization, the growing up here. So let's go football-wise. Was asking football question too. Gives love to the quarterbacks. Mentions Tramel Jones, but then says all of them have been great. It's a fun group. And even while he's out, he's trying to stay involved. Film room, mental reps, talking with the coaches, jug machines when he can, rehab, treatment. I mean, he's got the full cycle going on right now. But that's how you avoid falling behind when you're not practicing full speed. So takeaway here, Dallas Wilson right now, talent is obvious. But the story of this spring is going to be whether he can get the body right and stays patient. You go back to a year ago when he was injured. Go back to a season ago, and that was the worry. That was the reason he was in a boot. Probably in a boot more than he should have been because he needed to stay patient. He needed to stay off his foot. He needed to take care of himself. Because if he does, you can hear how badly he wants to be full go. A day-to-day player in this new team, in this new offense. All right. There we go. Hearing from Buster Faulkner, Vernell Brown III, Dallas Wilson. All right. Coming back to some comments. Junior, thanks for the donation, man. It means a lot. Means a lot. Guys, only some more comments right here. I'll come back around to them. Gator Guy says, "What's up, Dave? I find it funny that we are celebrating having a normal coach. This is what all other teams deal with all the time, not what we've had the past 4 years." Yeah, but we drank the Kool-Aid along the way. We thought there was a lot of good behind it. Now, I do think as time went on and we kept getting the word that Billy Napier was going to be so focused on the offense, so focused on the quarterbacks, and our worry was going to be, would the other aspects fall by the wayside? And we're going to get into it a little bit on the next episode of Gators Breakdown. We'll hear from Brad White, but we'll also hear from Miles Graham and Jaden Woods. And specifically from Miles Graham, kind of mentioning that how he enjoys John Summerall, the energy he brings, of course, that is different. But the approach of going around in practice and making himself involved for the whole team. And I think that's part of the conversation with Billy Napier failing as a head coach. His failure as an offensive coordinator, his failure as an offensive mind, failed him as a head coach. He wanted to be so involved on that side of the ball, it cost him his job. And in some ways, we'll get to it, maybe cost him his team. L. Wolf, kind of on that same note right there, L. Wolf 74 says, "I like that the OC and DC don't have a position group to coach and are allowed to oversee the overall offense defensive units." Yeah, you heard Buster Faulkner talk about it earlier. I mean, he's got multiple coaches, Craddock, Spurrier, that can go help with the quarterbacks. Well, he go spend time with Jaden Ball and develop part of Jaden Ball's game. Hopefully, that pays off. It's different. Different doesn't necessarily mean better. We've seen it work at other places. Hopefully, it works here at Florida. Junior coming in. Our floor has been significantly lifted, in my opinion. I think so too. Trying to buy in. Well, not trying to buy in. Buying in. We talked about it the other night with Miles on Tuesday. And it's not a unique thought. A lot of you are out there the same way. We have gone through this a many a time. And the buy-in is easy year one. Now, maybe as we do this more and more, that year one buy-in may become harder. Now, I think that's where it was headed. That's where it was lining up when it wasn't Lane Kiffin and it was John Summerall. Not many people were excited. Go back to Thanksgiving. Go back to Black Friday. Go back to Florida State. That 3-day stretch. We started getting word it wasn't Lane, it's John Summerall, and there weren't many excited for it. Then we get the opening press conference. Then we get John Summerall at this event and that event, on Gators Breakdown, on other Gators podcasts. Radio here, radio there, national interview here, national interview there. And I think he's naturally winning. I won't say everybody. Some are just going to completely wait till results. Some, I don't know where the headspace is. You're not going to win everybody over right away. And so many are probably in the ballpark that most of, that I'm in right now. He's won everything so far. Now, it will eventually be time to win games. I think many feel better than where they felt in late November. But it will ultimately come down to W's and L's. All right. Casual Carolina fishing. I like Billy, but I think we're just all glad he's our history now. Yep. Night of Faith brings up a good point. Not many people are not excited now that Scott Strickland is still the AD. Yeah, you're not going to win people over with that. The only way Scott Strickland is going to win some people over now is, you brought up basketball earlier. Night of Faith, and another comment I saw. At least the Florida Gator basketball team is doing well this year and heading for the Sweet 16. Hopefully more. But go win another basketball title. And then you nail the John Summerall hire. That's what it's going to take for many to feel somewhat good about Scott Strickland. Junior says, well, Billy lacked accountability. Bottom line, lack of accountability equals a lack of leadership. I don't think Summerall will hesitate to hold everyone accountable. That's the message I get too. And I think these players know that. And that will kind of go into the next episode. I've been kind of working on that episode already as well. Since we had Miles Graham and Jaden Woods was earlier in the week, had time to listen to their interviews. We can nitpick to make ourselves feel better. We can nitpick to make ourselves feel worse. There is a clear messaging on your last part there. Accountability, and you don't think Summerall would hesitate to hold everyone accountable. I don't think he will either. We'll see what that means. Doesn't necessarily mean wins. You can hold people accountable, but we'll see. You still got to put the other aspects of a game together, of a game plan together, of a staff together, of a program together. I think he'll hold himself accountable, but I also think he will hold the team accountable. All right. Good stuff, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it right here. Offensive side of the football. It'll be defense on, I think I'll release the next episode or record the next episode probably Sunday. Maybe Sunday. We'll see. We'll see. Got a busy weekend. But that will be defensive coordinator Brad White, linebacker Miles Graham, and edge rusher Jaden Woods. A lot of good stuff coming in that one. But there we go. Spring practice, day 2 in the books. And that'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown, everybody. Thank you for hopping in one more time. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't done so yet. And guys and girls out there, thank you for joining me for another episode of Gators Breakdown.